Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series on the Success Insight podcast. The Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration of the great outdoors. Our guests today are Joyce Yoo and Shane Borza. Joyce is a voice actor and career coach, and her husband Shane is a filmmaker and life coach. Joyce and Shane, welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Series on the Success Insight podcast.
Thank you. Hi, Howard.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Shane, it's so nice to meet you finally. And for our listeners, you may recall Joyce was on our podcast, way back in October 2020, episode 91. We had a series running then called Side Hustle Saturday. And as we just alluded to, Joyce is a voice actor in addition to being a career coach. And Joyce and I also work together. We are career coaches, career coaches here, consultants here in Las Vegas. And I know she has mentioned her husband, Shane, many times, and really for a unique reason. And so what I would love, because I think this is really cool, you guys share what you did. How long have you been in Las Vegas? Let's start there.
So we moved here at the beginning of 2020. Great timing, right before the pandemic.
Of course.
So it was a little bit strange trying to get to know a new city without being able to do much. And so we did end up going outdoors a lot. So doing a lot of stuff in Red Rocks, hiking, climbing. And that was kind of how we got to be active and do things out here.
Fantastic. Now, Shane, share a little bit about your background. I know, obviously, I mentioned that you're a filmmaker. You're also a life coach in your own right. Share a little bit about your kind of background overall. And obviously, you're married to Joyce, so that kind of says a lot right there. But share a little bit more about how you got to this point.
I grew up in New England, and there's a lot of climbing and outdoor stuff there. So I was really active outdoors, skiing and hiking and climbing and doing all that. Even when I was a kid, mostly through scouts is how I kind of got in everything. And a lot of the other things fell away, but I've always stayed with the climbing. So ever since I was a teenager, I've been doing it. And it's a big passion. And when we met, it was something that she liked to do as well. So it's become a thing for us to do together, kind of no matter where we are. You know, we lived in LA and now we're in Vegas. And filmmaking came out of, I have a writing degree from college, and I've just always liked doing creative things. And actually, it's been really great to share some of those things like climbing that most people don't get to experience unless they're able to see it. And I think that films about adventure are really great because they can inspire people and they can also teach people. So that's been a great way to overlap both Joyce and I together and both my kind of athletic life and creative life all in one.
Fantastic. Did you both happen to see this article about this little 5-year-old boy that was with his parents and they hiked the Appalachian Trail?
No.
We'll put it in the show notes at the end. And it was up on like Facebook, or maybe NPR did a story. This little 5-year-old kid and his parents took him on the Appalachian Trail. I mean, he had to get used to it. Trying to get, a 4-year-old or 5-year-old to do anything is a huge undertaking. But to hike the entire Appalachian Trail, I thought, wow, that is amazing. I don't think I have that in me. But when you met Joyce, I'm kind of curious, did you guys meet like at a meetup group, or did you meet at REI because you both liked climbing? How'd you two meet?
We actually met online on OkCupid.
So you're telling me, Joyce, it does work?
It does work. It can work. Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. And we just had enough common background and interest that we thought we'd have an interesting conversation and just kind of hit it off.
So was your first date together, let's go climbing, or did you go to what I would do, let's go to the coffee shop?
I think we just met for dinner because, as Joyce said, we thought like, well, let's go meet. At least we'll have a good talk because we have some common background.
Okay.
And so it was kind of a traditional, dinner date at that point, and then all the kind of adventure stuff came later.
Mm-hmm.
When did you first begin to enter the climbing into kind of like the dating ritual? I mean, I would do hiking. I would take a date out. Let's go look at the Milky Way and take pictures of the stars. So I get it. When did you first introduce the climbing?
I think we introduced both of our major common interests pretty early. I think it was just the second or third date that we actually screened our respective films for each other, because at that point we had both independently made some films. And then he took me bouldering in Malibu Creek Canyon in the Los Angeles area. So there's kind of this river and waterfall and this really beautiful area. I fell in the water, so that was super fun.
Oh boy. Hopefully not from a great height, Joyce.
No, not a huge height, but it was very cold.
Oh, God. Okay. Very cool.
That was actually a really happy accident because I got really nervous that she was going to be really upset. And instead she like laughed about it. And I was like, okay, if she's cool about that, then she's probably cool about everything. And then, here we are. So.
Excellent. So how long have you been kind of dating before this idea of this is it? I mean, I want to spend my life with, each of you's thinking, I want to spend my life with this guy or this wonderful woman. How long had that gone on before like, okay, let's do this?
Maybe 3.5 years.
Okay.
Ish. Or I feel like that's how long we dated before we got married. But when we decided probably in summer of 2014. So I guess we've been dating at the time for 2 years. And then it took another year for us to actually have the wedding.
Okay.
So 12, 13, 14. That's 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, first of all, Shane, are you the one that popped the question? Or I know Joyce, I work with her. So she's incredibly capable of popping the question. But did you pop the question?
Well, yes, and in our own way, it was typically atypical.
Okay.
We actually went up to Yosemite. We took a climbing kind of adventure trip to Yosemite, and it was a little bit of to do. Like it rained on us, and we had to like retreat and go and get a hotel at the last minute and all this stuff. And it was hiking out in the dark, and we were exhausted, and so I was very upset with myself about having it not go well. And I felt like, well, I can't ask her now. We just had this terrible ordeal. But I also didn't not want to ask. And so I kind of just fumbled through explaining how important she was to me and how I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. And then I waited for her to say yes. And she's like, well, you didn't actually ask me the question. So we both kind of laughed. And then while we're in the car trying to get to a hotel room to dry out and warm up, I asked, like, will you marry me? And she's like, of course. So it was a very atypical thing, but it was kind of perfect for us and who we are.
That's fantastic. This kind of reminds me of the American version of The Office. I forget the characters' names, the two leads, and I guess Jim and Pam. I think he asked her right outside of a convenience store or something like that. So that's kind of close. So let's start to get into and share with our audience this very unique wedding. And where was your wedding?
We got married not only in Yosemite, which is a very important place to me, but we got married on a ledge, 300 feet off the ground on El Capitan.
300 feet on a ledge on El Capitan in Yosemite Park. That's pretty amazing. Whose idea was this?
Well, it was a slow reveal from me where I, again, was testing the waters and said, hey, soon-to-be wife, what would you think about getting married in Yosemite? And she was like, oh, that sounds cool. And I was like, what would you think about getting married, like, El Cap? And she's like, well, that seems cool. I was like, what would you think about getting married, like, on El Cap, like, on a ledge, like, not at the base? And with each step, I was super hesitant and expecting the no. And to my delight, every question got a yes.
Very good.
I mean, I thought it was, a cool idea. Because honestly, we didn't want to do a traditional big wedding. It just sounded like a big headache to us. And so we were just going to go to the courthouse. And so when he brought up the idea, it was so unique and cool and personal to us. And so, I just kind of thought, well, that'll be a great story.
Yeah.
So I was all in.
So in each step of the way, I mean, Shane, your questions are very coach-like. You kind of, test the waters a little bit. What about this? What about this? Okay. What about this? So it's very, very coach-esque. I can see you're a life coach. Okay. Well done. Joyce, at each step along the way, you were like all in as he's asking you these questions, or were you thinking, and was there anything, in your mind thinking, oh my God, what am I committing to here? Or you were like all in?
I mean, a little bit just thinking about logistics of it, because when he brought it up, I was still thinking kind of, you invite people and, do the whole thing. And I thought, oh, that sounds like it might be expensive to reserve space in Yosemite. And then we have to get all these people to come out and travel there and that sort of thing. So that was a little bit in the back of my mind. But once it became that we were going to climb on a ledge, that really limits your guest list a little bit.
So, Shane pops the question. You're like, yep, that's cool. Let's do this. And then the reality sets in like, okay, how do we accomplish this? And first, I can imagine the families or friends are ecstatic, the perfect couple, they love doing things together, love being with each other, and then when they found out you're going to get married in Yosemite and there's not going to have this traditional wedding, what were the, I don't know, I want to say repercussions, but I'm sure some things were said.
Well, I'll jump in on that because my mom definitely had a huge 0 to 100 to 0, where I got on the call with her we were living in LA and my mom was in New England, and I was like, hi, blah blah blah, weekly check-in. Oh, I've got some exciting news, and she was like, oh, and I was like, I asked her to marry me. She said yes, and she was like, oh my God, amazing. And I was like, and we're going to get married in Yosemite. And she's like, but how is everyone going to go? It's like really isolated and small. And so there was immediately some reactions. Yes.
Okay. So once the smoke clears, so to speak, okay, in a good way, and you start to plan this event to go and have the ceremony in Yosemite, what type of activities were involved in really kind of executing this event?
Well, first of all, to get in to climb where we wanted to climb. So, Shane knows Yosemite pretty well and El Cap pretty well in the climbs. And so we had to think about a spot that was doable enough for our party. It was kind of a mixed level of climbing experience and activity, but also that wasn't that popular because we didn't want to be in the middle of our wedding and then another group climbing just kind of crashes the party and is trying to get through. And so the spot that he picked, it's quite an arduous hike in. And so that was one of the main components, is that we all had to be in shape enough to do this steady uphill rocky hike for about an hour and a half.
Okay.
I mean, just relentless uphill, right? So first of all, everyone needed to be able to do that.
By the way, I know, Joyce, if we had known each other, you would have invited me to the wedding. I would have probably not been able to make it. I would have been at the parking lot, at least right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so please continue.
Yeah, so the hiking was a big piece. And then, climbing a big wall, which is the kind of climb that you do in Yosemite, where it's several pitches and often you have to stay overnight, is very technical. There's a lot more gear involved that you have to understand. You have to know how to work, and you have to really have it down to be safe because it is risky. And so we did 6 months of training where we met with our team once a month to do kind of the skills training, and then everyone was kind of doing their own individual conditioning to be in shape for the hike.
Shane, in the number of folks that were joining you on this hike and for the wedding, what was the count? Is it just kind of a handful, 10, 20? What was the count?
We joked initially that we were eloping with friends because, to your point, yeah, we knew a lot of people wouldn't be able to go, even just to Yosemite in general.
Right.
but especially going up onto the little ledge because it was so small. And as Joyce mentioned, it's very arduous to get up there. So there were certain practical considerations of, well, who might want to go, but are they physically capable of getting up there or not? And so the total number on the ledge was actually 6 people. So Joyce and I, her maid of honor, my best man, the pastor, who is Joyce's father, and the camera guy, so that he could video everything. And that was all so the 6 of us hiked in and climbed up and did the ceremony and then came back down and hiked back up. And we did have both our moms and Joyce's brother there, but they stayed kind of on the ground in the valley. And so they were there like at the dinner and the day before and the day after, but up on the ledge for the ceremony was just the 6 of us.
Okay. Now, I can venture a guess, but of the 6 of you, who kind of stretched themselves the most of like, I can't believe I just did this?
Probably my dad. At the time he was 62 years old and had never climbed a day in his life and, wasn't very active. And so he's always been adventurous and liking to learn new things. But honestly, we were very skeptical that he could do it. I mean, he kept insisting he wanted to when he could, but when we were doing trainings, he had all these trips overseas and kept missing our meetings. So he didn't learn any of the gear. And we're like, we can't take him up. That's his safety. That's everyone else's safety on the line. But he did, manage to kind of meet with us privately and learn the skills. And he actually picked it up very quickly. He was going to study and he was going to become an engineer. So he has that kind of mind. He understands systems and machines and things really well. So yeah, it was probably the biggest stretch for him, but also my maid of honor is afraid of heights. But she did have some climbing experience. So at least that she had on him.
Okay. And with the photographer, was this a friend of yours, Shane, or?
Yes. So we've actually been friends since high school. He's one of the few guys I've known the majority of my life. And luckily for me, I think at least 10 years ago, maybe longer, he opened his own photography studio. And so not only did he have all the equipment you would need, but he and I grew up climbing together. So I said, oh, this is perfect. It's someone I know who has a camera background and a climbing background. If there is anyone ideal for this, it's him.
Wow. Now, when you have everybody together now, you get to Yosemite, how long was the hike up during that day? Because, I mean, a lot of things are going on. I mean, there's excitement, nervousness, the weather, et cetera. And by the way, what time of the year was the hike?
It was in late September.
This is your anniversary, by the way. You should know this. Okay.
It was in late September. And we picked that specifically so that it wouldn't be too hot. And actually, it was so cold in the morning that we delayed our start.
Like 2 hours.
Yeah, we pushed it back about 2 hours. And I think it did take, 1.5 hours, an hour 45, something like that. Because we did stop, take breaks in between, grab water, eat, whatever.
And we were filming everything too. So sometimes you'd take a break and say, Jeff's going to film us walking away from him. And then we'll sit down for 5 minutes so he can catch up and then get ahead of us and then film us walking up to him. And so that gave us a chance to take some breaks as well.
Okay. So you get up to the ledge. How much time did you spend up there?
Probably a good hour.
Yeah. Maybe even a little bit more. Because there was a little bit of prep involved, obviously, getting set up for the shots and all that. And, my maid of honor and I touching up like hair and makeup and whatnot in our outfits and whatever. And we ran through some parts of it. I mean, we ran through the whole ceremony once just as kind of the true ceremony.
And then, for us.
Right, for us. And we were, of course, recording it. But then we did do some pickups, for coverage and different angles and things like that.
And the magic of it was a lot of this happened as a happy accident. We knew going in that because we were, quote unquote, eloping with friends, that we wanted to film everything so that we could make, which is common, like a video of the wedding and share it with all the people who couldn't be there in person. We didn't really have the idea to do some of the other things that came out until like we got home and started looking at all the footage that we had.
And so, yeah, let's chat some more about that. By the way, years ago, and I don't think I've ever shared this, even during our breakout, team meetings, Joyce, is I paid my way through school as a wedding photographer. Okay. And in the days of film, now it's digital. I remember once I left the wedding to go home and I realized I forgot to take some very important shots. Not the best day of my life. I got them done. All was good. But I can only imagine you're heading down the cliff, down the side. It's like, oh my God, I forgot that. We got to go back up. That's why I'm thinking about that as you're sharing the story. Okay. Now, by the way, I'm going to have nightmares probably for another 12 months now. And I still have nightmares that I've run out of film, and I haven't shot a wedding in a long, long time. So you get down, you start looking at, you have your party, everybody's happy, enjoying. You get back home and you're looking at the pictures, the video. When did you begin to have this insight, like there's something here in addition to just sharing the output with your family and friends? How'd that come about?
Yeah, I think from watching the footage back again, when you're in it and experiencing it, you just sort of go along with it. It's kind of linear. But then when you're watching it back several times, you start to see patterns emerge, like storylines emerge a little bit. And we realized that each person in our team kind of had their own arc. They had their own journey through this experience and their own perspective on it and all of that. And even just as we began to share with people what we had done and getting some of the reactions and the things that they were like, wait, what? And, asking questions about and wanting to know more about, we realized like, oh, it might be interesting to put some of that into a film. And so we originally cut about a 40-minute video together to screen at our reception, which happened 6 weeks after our ledge ceremony. So we rented out a single screen theater in LA and invited, all the people that we would have invited had it been a more traditional wedding, and we screened that for them.
And so you start to produce this documentary, and actually, before we kind of go down that line of conversation, as a result of this very unique wedding and the recording and sharing it, did you get any converts like, oh God, I want to take up rock climbing?
Well, it's funny. So my best man and we had worked a ropes course when we were young, and he didn't get back into climbing, but it was the first time he climbed in probably 20 years since we were in like high school. And he said it definitely got him back into doing more outdoor stuff, just like hiking in general and having like adventure trips as opposed to just going to the gym. And I think that was really cool for him. And I know Joyce's father hasn't done any more climbing, but I think he too had more of an appreciation for like hiking and some of that outdoor stuff. But I haven't heard anybody that's seen the film that became a rock climber because of the movie yet, but maybe they're out there.
It could be. Now, with this documentary, how long did it take to take the video, bring in the different story arcs that Joyce that you had mentioned, and come out with this final product? How much effort was involved there? And again, you're the filmmaker, so this is like a walk in the park for you, but it's a little different.
Well, there was two, like Joyce mentioned. So we did the reception screening, and so we had about 6 weeks to cut the short film, the 40-minute one. And we initially felt like, okay, so we did the screening and that's done. We had 250 people or whatever. We filled the theater. All our friends and family was there. Everyone saw it. It was great. And I think we tweaked it a little bit later, did some extra changes, and then we put it out into some film festivals. And I think at first we were like, okay, that's our movie and it's done. And then a couple years later, I think that was 2015,
We
2016.
got married in 2015.
So 2016 is when it went out into the festivals initially, the short version. And then in 2019, we were like, there's some stuff we weren't able to fit in. I wonder if maybe we could turn this into a feature film. And so then we had this second round of turning it from 40 minutes into what is now a 85-minute full-length movie.
Oh, wow.
And so to answer your question, initially it was the 6 weeks, but then really it became this multi-year, multi-version project.
That's very cool. So I am curious, when you did the screening for the family and friends, were you filming, how you go, I've never actually been to a festival or a screening, but I can imagine, there's the paparazzi out there taking pictures of the guests coming in on the red carpet. There's the videos. There's the talking at the, the logo wall. Everybody's in their finest. Were you taking any of those kinds of shots too? I mean, really making this like the quote unquote Hollywood screening?
Yeah, so there was a red carpet and we had our posters up, in the theater on display. And, El Cap Wedding was in the marquee and everything. And we did kind of this silly thing, a popular thing at weddings fairly recently was, the photo booth with all the props, like the giant glasses and boas and stuff. So we had all kind of these movie themed props that we had people that could use, like a tiny Oscar or whatever. And they were on the red carpet taking, fun photos and such. And our buddy Jeff, who had filmed the movie, was there as our photographer, and he was taking shots. And so, yeah, we definitely had the whole red carpet experience, and it's a really nice theater, very nice seats. And then afterwards, they have this patio in the back. And so that's where we had all the food and dessert and all of that.
Very nice. Very nice. So when the 40-minute film gets turned into the 80 plus 85-minute film, and you start to submit to the festivals, what was the result of that second initiative?
Well, to go back, the first one, the short version, we call it, the 40-minute, we won a Best Documentary Award at the Mountain Film Festival. And that was very cool because they did the typical thing, which is like email you a PDF of like, hey, here's your, certificate of winning the thing. But we also had the option of getting this really nice kind of like desktop, like crystal award.
Like glass cut.
Yeah. And it's emblazoned, it has our name and the name of the movie and everything on it. So that was really cool. And then when the feature came out, it was supposed to be there was 3 festivals here in Las Vegas in 2020. And of course, the festivals were all canceled because of COVID. So we had to kind of sit on our hands for a year and wait. But this past July, we were able to actually have the film premiere on the big screen with the red carpet and everything here live in Las Vegas. And some of our friends came. And in fact, Joyce's father drove in from California. And so we were able to have a little mini reunion and see the poster on the wall and walk the red carpet and all of that in a proper big theater as part of a festival. So there were some delays and some unexpected things, but it was really exciting. It felt like the completion of a big arc.
That's fantastic. And, definitely, and as I would share with many of my guests, that, whatever photographs you would like to share, up on El Cap or during the premiere, the festivals, just would love to be able to share that with our audience. The accomplishment, the joy. I think that would be a fantastic accompaniment to the podcast. Now, if our listeners want to learn more about, or actually to view this documentary, and where would they go to see it?
So they can go to elcapwedding.com. That's ELCAP wedding.com. And they can either rent or buy to stream it online.
Fantastic. Now, I'm curious, now that this event, this major event, is the documentary, the full film, it's still in the rear view mirror. You can still see it. Okay. The folks perhaps other than family and friends that have seen it, what type of reaction have you gotten to, number one, I can't believe you guys did this, and number two, this is so cool, I want to do this, or I know people that would love to to repeat exactly what you did. What kind of feedback have you gotten there?
Yeah, so we've definitely heard things like, it's the most unique wedding we've ever heard of, and nope, for people who are afraid of heights. And I've definitely heard from other climbers that, oh my gosh, we should do this, or things like that. And I think definitely my dad has gotten a great reaction from his pastor friends, because pastors do a lot of weddings, but this one is definitely unique. And so he's probably the only pastor who's ever done a wedding on a ledge.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen pictures underwater. I've seen pictures up on, jumping out of airplanes, which is something I would never do. But and then El Cap, that's pretty darn unique. That's pretty darn unique. What are your big takeaways for the two of you in, number one, learning more about yourself, your partner, your friends, and what you accomplished through this adventure of number one, having the moment of having your wedding, planning and executing this climb, this very technical climb. What's your overall learnings that you would want to share with our audience?
For me, I would say just the increased confidence, I think, or bravery of just try it. I think we were contending with a lot in doing this, and there were a lot of points where we weren't sure if it could happen, but having a strong team and everyone being committed to it and just being like, well, let's go for it, let's try it, was incredible, and gave us the ability to just keep pushing, keep problem solving when things came up, and figure out a way and make it happen. And so being able to complete something like that on that scale, yeah, I think it's probably still one of the biggest projects overall I've ever done. So it just kind of gave me a little bit more confidence and courage to try other things.
Very good. Shane?
Well, it's funny because when I was younger, I didn't ever necessarily, I didn't grow up thinking like, I'm going to get married and have kids someday and all of that kind of, quote, normal stuff. My future vision of life was more, I want to go climb this mountain somewhere, or I want to go travel to this country. Like those were the things that I thought of. And if I thought of getting married, it was more of this non-traditional way. And I didn't think that I'd ever meet someone who would kind of embrace that. And so to have not only a wedding, but a film and a climbing trip all in one really cemented me with Joyce, because it showed me that in each one of those aspects, separately, much less together, that we were really in alignment. And that, I think, showed me that, well, if that can happen, like what else is possible?
Very good. I love that. And, kudos to OkCupid, because wow. I love it. And I definitely, for our listeners, you've got to check out the, El Cap Wedding, and we'll provide the backlinks to it on our website. Shane and Joyce, if our listeners would like to continue to learn more about you and your adventures, your work, Joyce, why don't we start with you? Where are the best places for them to go?
So they can find me at joyceyoo.com, JoyceYoo. And also I'm on LinkedIn, Joyce H. Yoo, and Instagram. It's Noyce Juice, NOYCEJUICE. Those are two of my nicknames.
I think I just learned something new about you. Okay. Stays here. I don't share it anywhere else. Shane, how about you? Where's the best places to get to know more about you?
I'm on my website and all the socials at Shane Borza. So they put that name in a Google search, like all my stuff will pop up. The one thing I did want to tag on though is we also had our first original soundtrack for the film, and you can get you just look up El Cap Wedding wherever you get your music, whether you want to stream it, download it, buy it, and you can find the soundtrack. And it's all singer-songwriter music made by a friend of ours, which is another great part of the collaboration.
That is fantastic. It's like a little bit for everybody. It's fantastic. Well, Shane, Joyce, thank you so much for joining me on the Outdoor Adventure Series on Success Insight podcast. I think this is a very worthy addition. It's just like, it's been on my mind for a while to ask Joyce to see, would you like to come on the podcast? And especially now that the Outdoor Adventure Series is really taking off. And so I think it's just a wonderful addition to it. So thank you both for taking time and joining me here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We had a great time.
Yes. Great opportunity. Thanks.
Fantastic. All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Joyce Yoo. She's a voice actor, career coach. Her husband, Shane Borza, filmmaker, life coach. And this episode has been on the Outdoor Adventure Series on Success Insight podcast. And we have been really chatting with Joyce and Shane about their journey to wedded bliss. And in this case, the wedded bliss actually, it's ongoing, obviously, but the event of the wedding took place, 300 and some feet above ground level on El Capitan in Yosemite. And along the way, lives were changed. And we had this young lady afraid of heights, a dad, the pastor, who's never thought he would wake up one day and say, I'm going to go climb a rock to marry my daughter, but he did. And what a great experience. And not only the documentary, but the full-length film. And really, and the kudos to Shane and Joyce. This film has won awards, the 2017 Best Documentary at the Mountain Film Festival. And we'll provide, again, all backlinks to that on our website. And, of course, go out and to the web, lcapwedding.com. That is the website where you can take a look at the wedding. And you can also find the music that was created by Shane's friend. We'll have all the links back to Shane and Joyce's social sites as well. Okay. If you enjoyed today's podcast, we would love to hear from you. We would love a comment, a like. Hey, share it with your friends, family. If you have friends that are into mountain climbing, this is perfect. Okay. You can find us on our website, successinsightpodcast.com. LinkedIn and Facebook, Success Insight Podcast. And we're also on all of the podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, especially Spotify, where we have our Outdoor Adventure Series. So you can listen to this episode as well as all of our other Outdoor Adventure Series episodes. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. Take care of yourselves, your family. Practice social distancing if appropriate, wear the mask if appropriate, take care of everybody in the community, yourselves, and we will see you on the next episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series on the Success Insight podcast. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.